What's up? Back with episode 3 of Me, Myself and Mental Health, and today I'm going to be talking about mental health within the hospitality industry because it is definitely something a lot of people have struggled with. Well, hospitality is a pretty strange industry to work in, I think, because from the outside it just solely looks like it's a whole bunch of fun, and it is. It's great fun. I mean, I've been in it since I was 18, so I'm in my many years later part. But it also is an industry that is rife with mental health problems due to many factors. One of them being the hours. If you work behind a bar, particularly a busy bar or a bar that's open all hours. I've worked places that have opened at 8 a.m. and closed at 3 a.m. And throughout a week, you might be doing some shifts that start at 7 a.m. You might be doing some that start at 6 p.m. So having a body clock, that's basically something that doesn't happen. So sleep, that's gone pretty much. There's also the fact that it's not a very well paid industry unless you are doing really well. So you're doing a hell of a lot of hours for not a huge payoff financially at the end of it, and that in itself can feel exhausting, particularly if you're in a country where tipping culture doesn't exist, or more so if you're a country where you have to rely solely on tips, because if you have a shit day, your whole week's gone. Outside of the hours, there's the very obvious aspect of drugs and alcohol. Drugs is something that's very common on the scene. A lot of people will try drugs for the first time when they work in bars. It was the first time I tried anything was when I worked in a bar, and for a good few years there, while I was doing these 70+ hour weeks all the time, it was something that I'd done a lot. And you would finish work and you'd go out, but you're exhausted, so you'd get on it, and then you'd be in the next day feeling rough, so you'd finish work and get on it. And it was, it can be a really dangerous cycle if you firstly don't have a lot of self-control. Also, if you're not around the right people. Like, I've found something in every place you work, there is a big difference between friends, work friends, drinking buddies. In hospitality, you meet dozens of people. I've probably worked with something in the region of 500 people over the last 17 years. Of course, you can't expect to be best friends with everyone you work with, but you are in these situations where you're all working these really long, late shifts together, and because of your shift work and your schedules, you end up kind of being the only people that are free at the same time as each other. So at a point, you can end up living and breathing each other, especially when you're overseas. If you move overseas and you don't really know other people, you don't have people around you that you've known throughout your life before you worked in bars. You just become each other's existence, and that can be really suffocating. And you do build these pretty intense relationships very fast. But that someone being your best friend might not actually be that good a friend. Are they your best friend because they're the person you go out drinking with the most, who you have the most fun partying with? Or are they your best friend because if you have phoned them up at 4 a.m. with a serious trauma, they would drop everything and come to you? There is a difference, and I think it's particularly when you're younger, it's quite hard to see where the line is. I know I certainly, when I was younger, have had friendships with people that it was a one-way street, or that maybe we actually weren't even very good to each other at all. We just like partying with each other, and you find out pretty quickly that there can be a lot of behind the back talk for people that you may regard as your friends. And because it is quite a tiring place to be in, you might lean on people more than you should. it's something even now. I'm within the industry, but I'm not behind a bar. I meet a lot of people through work um, who are all lovely, but I've certainly become aware enough from experience and really from just the way you interact with them, who are people that are people I know who are through work who are lovely, and people who are my friends. And by friends, I mean friends in the truest sense, like, hey, what are you up to today? Let's go and do something. Oh yeah, I'll come to this non-drinking thing. Or how are you feeling? What's going on in your life at the minute, friends? Not just, hey, yeah, you can join our table. And that's not to discredit drinking buddies. It's actually great to have people to hang out with that don't know everything about you and don't want to know everything about you, because you can then switch off and not have to go into stuff you don't necessarily want to at that time. But it is super easy to get caught into that drinking buddy cycle. You just encourage each other to do some silly things. And when you start going out all of the time and work all of the time, it really takes its toll on you physically, which takes its toll on you mentally. You become completely exhausted, you feel the pressure to join in. You don't really get a lot of people still now who, when you say, no, I'm done or I'm not joining in, are going to be like, oh yeah, that's cool, I understand. You still get like, oh, you pussy, oh man. I have that social pressure when you work in such a social environment to be out all the time, to go to all of these events, and it takes its toll. To what point do you say no, or are you even willing to say no? And of course, with the social pressure and the expectation to always be up for partying and to always be ready to say yes and to be ready to go for a drink, there's the hospo smile. The hospo smile is something you live with on your face because you're in a customer facing job. You are in a very social industry. You are representing a brand, whoever you work for, and so you're expected to be pleasant and smiley and happy and cheerful, which, when you're not particularly feeling that way, can be daunting. One thing I found for myself was that when you constantly keep this smile on your face for work, where you're spending most of your hours, and then to socialize, it becomes hard to switch it off. You start just saying to yourself, oh no, I'm all good, I'm just tired, oh yeah, just daydreaming. You say all the kind of things that people say when they're masking depression, because you get very used to keeping up this hospo smile facade, that you can quite easily lose touch with what you're actually feeling, because you don't want you don't want to be the party pooper. Yeah, I think it's also one of those industries that doesn't get taken very seriously from people outside of it, which I've never understood. Without the hospitality industry, everything else kind of falls to shit. Countries rely on tourism and hospitality. Everyone that works in these other jobs relies on being able to go and unwind in a bar or in a restaurant afterwards. And we so often are just expected to suck it up and keep on a smile and deal with it when people come and take their frustrations out at the end of a week and get too drunk and become abusive or rude or disrespectful, throw up in your venue, treat you like an idiot. Why is that okay? Why is the job we're doing any different to what you're doing? Pretty sure you'd be upset if you couldn't get a beer on a Friday after sitting in front of a computer all week. Then once someone else has taken their work week out on you, you get to the end of your work week and all you're thinking is, God, I need a drink. God, I want to just go and have a massive blowout. And you do, and then it starts again. And then you're finishing work at some bizarre time, going out to the last place that's open to some bizarre time, going drinking back at someone's house. Suddenly the sun's up, you haven't had any sleep, you're sleeping half a day, the next day you haven't got out, got in the air, looked after yourself, probably do the same the next night because it's your only other day off, and then you're back at work. And it's no secret to anyone that drugs and alcohol and sleep all impact physical and mental health. I have been on a bit of a bender recently, and God, I've just felt absolute shit, like real shit. Physically, I look a mess. My skin's been breaking out. I've been just far more tired than I normally would be, which, as someone who never ever sleeps, is saying something. And my mental health has not been fantastic. Like I've felt down or just a bit clouded. I'm really fortunate in that I'm comfortable openly talking about that and have spoken about it with friends because I know the signs and because I'm able to recognize them and put a hold to it before it does go too far. That's not something that is necessarily true of everyone, and I think within this industry where everyone is in the same boat, we owe it to each other to give the time outside of a bar, even for people that perhaps aren't just your drinking buddies. Maybe they can be your coffee buddy or your lunch buddy or your let's take a walk up Mount Vic and just chill out buddy. We owe it to each other and to ourselves to ask bigger questions than, hey, do you want to go for a drink tonight, or are you going to this event, or how was the party? People are more than that. When I was coming towards the end of working behind a bar, I was just so drained by having done it for 15 years that I was really hard work. Didn't really want to deal with anyone. My patience had worn so thin. I was so exhausted. I couldn't keep on a hospital smile anymore. And when I done my last shift, I pretty much went to bed for a week. I felt this huge relief, and I think it's sad. Like it is a really fun industry, and a lot of people do have fun, or at least they look like they're having fun. But nearly everyone I know that works behind a bar spends all of their time, all of their social time, bitching and complaining either about the job, about the money, about their bosses, or about other people at work. And that's not a sign of being okay. Like, I don't know any happy people that just constantly complain and bitch about things. Sometimes you need to take a step back and say, is it really every single other person around me that is the problem here? And if so, what am I doing to improve that? Particularly if you are, over here as an immigrant and you are sponsored by a job, you can feel really suffocated. You can feel a bit like you're being held hostage, and you have to find a way to make that work for yourself, because the more you piss and bitch and moan about it and don't do anything to resolve it, the harder it's going to be and the more unhappy you're going to be. And if you do work with someone that is, consistently unhappy with the role, with the people around them, is constantly complaining, maybe we stop bitching about them behind their back about how much they complain, and we all just try and ask if something more's going on. I would certainly be open to any of my hospital friends to let's just go and do something on a regular basis that is not based around drinking. Let's go for, I don't really know, just go bowling, or let's go and play with dogs at the SPCA. That would be fucking awesome. Everyone loves dogs and they make everyone happy, as long as we don't make the dogs sad. In fact, I'd be open for maybe getting a group together regularly that just goes and spends a day doing something that isn't all about the party and bitching about work. Maybe we'll open an actual dialogue about what it is that upsets you about work, and maybe between everyone we have the experience to work out how to make it better for you and for everyone else. Until next time, take care of each other, check in with each other, and ask bigger questions than, are we going for a drink?